What is an adaptation? An adaptation is a change that humans or other animals make to become better suited to their environment. So, what does it mean to become better suited to your environment? Well, I'll show you because you do it we do it all the time here in New Orleans. So, here's a common New Orleans home. You see, it's raised up off the ground. Why is it raised up off the ground? Well, it's raised up off the ground because New Orleans floods. All right, and if it is raised up off the ground, it is protected from some of that flooding and some of that damage that could be caused. All right, so today we're going to look at how Native Americans have adapted to some of the dangers like flooding that they will face. All right, and they use their natural resources to overcome some of those dangers. So let's jump right in. Arctic region. As you can see, it is full of dangers. All right, let's look at they are. Extreme cold. I have dangers down here. Notice in your chart, dangers comes first, all right? You're going to feel extreme cold into the danger section. I want you to be very careful into where information is placed. Sometimes dangers will be in the right order. Sometimes it will not be, all right? I want you to go ahead and correct that. All right, resources. Whales, walrus, caribou, which are kind of like moose, seals, ice, snow, and polar bears. All right, that's a lot of resources. Actually, it looked like there wasn't not a lot of plant resources, but we have animal resources. Pick two of those and add to your resource section. Now, how did they adapt? All right, they adapted by creating igloos. All right, igloos could keep in the heat from their bodies once they got inside. And so even though it would be negative 49 degrees outside, it would be as warm as 19 to a toasty 61 inside. So that's a pretty nice adaptation. Let's look at some more. Northwest region. Soak in that beautiful view for just a minute. All right, that's been a minute. I don't know. I'm not wearing a watch. But as you probably guessed, their resources, trees, beavers, and salmon. All right. I'm sure you guessed the trees. I'm not sure about the beavers and salmon. All right. And so the dangers, weather, and animals. Add that to your chart. Now, weather and animals, that's not as an extreme danger. All right. And their resources led them to create large houses that they could live in together. All right. Why such large houses? Well, they had so much wood and so many trees that they used those resources to create large houses. All right. Also, enjoy this totem pole over to the side. They had a lot of leisure time, so they could create wonderful art like that. So they made totem poles. It's just a wonderful thing if you have lots of resources and food around you. Northeast region. Okay. Similar to Northwest region. And we see dangers, cold weather, and animals similar. Fish, trees, beavers, and other animals. So similar resources, similar dangers. What do you think will happen? They also created the longhouse. You see these where the light's shining in on this picture is actually chimneys. They have sometimes 10 to 12 chimneys down. Huge longhouses, all right? These are built by the Iroquois. Southwest region. This is interesting. That's a plateau. Not quite a mountain, right? Not quite a hill, all right? But a plateau where it goes up and it's flat on top. Now, it's just another landform. We'll talk more about that later. Dangers, heat, drought, fertile soil, though, is a good resource, and clay and mud can also be a good resource because, as you will see, these people adapted by creating awesome cliff cities. Check that out. What? Cliff cities? It's awesome. Nice and cool in the shade, protected. It's just amazing to me. And here is another little home they make. It's called a hogan. That's a nice hogan, but come on. Cliff City? Come on. All right, and here's a plateau here. Notice. A smaller one called a mesa. All right, Great Plains region. We see a resource that they have right here, okay? Resources, the buffalo. Dangers, losing the buffalo because the buffalo moves. Got to move with it, all right? Food, also buffalo, which is why it shows it's so important to the Indians in the Great Plains region, all right? What did they do? They built teepees. All right, you can see them chasing the buffalo. To chase that buffalo, you need something that you can pack down. And those teepees, you could actually take those support beams out of them and roll them up and take them with you. They could travel. That's how they adapted. They made mobile homes that they could move around. All right, southeast. I just covered it up because I just put a big old swamp there because I'm feeling swampy. And so there's a big old swamp, and that shows you what the natural environment of the southeast is like. All right, it's very wet. So we see that it has some of the dangers that New Orleans has. Well, New Orleans is in the southeast. It's flooding and also rain. Resources, plants, and animals. I wanted to go into a little bit of detail here because there's a rich food diet here. All of that swampiness brings a lot of plants and animals, and so we have alligator, deer, turkey, rabbit, corn, beans, squash, all in this region. All right, and the adaptation, well, you guessed it, raised homes called the chickies, and also wattle and daub homes with grass thatched roofs to protect from rain. Now, some things to add about Native Americans. I wanted to add this picture of farming. This is very early, created by Europeans. I don't always get to teach that Native Americans like to farm. For some reason, they like to have me teach that they like to hunt and gather. And I don't know, maybe it's because the people that created our country came over and they like to feel that maybe they introduced farming and they had all these great ideas that they gave to the Native Americans. And maybe that makes them feel okay about coming and pushing them off their land. So it gives you a little something about point of view. I don't really even get to teach. On tests, it says the Native Americans were hunters and gatherers. But just so you know, they actually farmed. They farmed squash, corn, and beans. And actually, those three work together to keep the soil nutritious. Also created some big cities. This is the Mississippian culture on the Mississippi River. Right. Things you need to know. They traded with colonists, British, French, fought with colonists over land, did not share colonists' point of view. We already talked about that. Let's see an example. So, Trail of Tears, I mean, to know American history where people move around for lots of different reasons, this is a good example of when people moved around against their will. Okay, a forced migration where people have migrated from one place to another. Native Americans in this area, Cherokee, Seminole, and other tribes, forced over into places like Oklahoma where the soil was not good, where they could not make a good living, all right? And they were not able to keep up their way of life. And they just got whatever land other people didn't like. How's that for point of view, all right? So that's about all we have for Native Americans. And we're going to go on to talk about Europeans and their impact on the environment later, all right? But we have some questions for you to do some writing. Good luck. Have fun.